Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Real Estate Mobile MD. My name is Bob Bosick. I'm a retired C-suite executive, and I have the privilege of speaking with medical professionals, high-income earners, and investors. We're happy to share both real-world journeys along with the to-dos and, more importantly, the not-to-dos. We're very, very fortunate to have Dr. Daniel Kessler with us today. It's a pleasure to have you. We're sort of neighbors here in Florida today, and it's a pleasure to have you join. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today, Bob.
Very, very welcome. So I usually like to start and just kind of let the listeners understand a little bit about your background, where you kind of started medical school, and how long you've been out of residency and your current position. So why don't we just start there?
Sure. So born in Germany, came to the U.S. in about 95, eventually worked at the CDC for a while. And then at the CDC, I decided to go to medical school at Nova, which is down in Fort Lauderdale. After that, was fortunate to do my residency in family medicine at Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. I've been in private practice ever since I graduated 2006. I have done pretty much a lot of things from general family medicine to pediatrics. At one point, I was hired by a large cardiology group. I basically did, cardiology patients for a while. But throughout all this time, my passion has also been integrative medicine and functional medicine. So I was one of the very first doctors in the nation to be certified. Part of this was because of my background. My parents are doctors, and they also are in the functional medicine field in Germany. So now I live in beautiful Amelia Island. Like you said, we're neighbors.
Yes, we are. What were you doing that got you involved with the CDC initially?
Yeah, I was very fortunate after I came from Germany to go to Emory University. That's where I did my undergrad. And then I decided to, take some time off and actually have a real job. And then I was, right there. The CDC was right there, very prestigious. And at the time, I had to be resourceful because I was a student. I was not a resident, which means I have to have a job. Otherwise, I get deported. So I applied, and fortunately, they had a job. So that's how I ended up at the CDC.
And where from Germany did you originate?
I was from northern Germany, near Hamburg.
Hamburg, okay. I was a long, long time ago in a town called Bremerhaven. Yep. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah, very close to Hamburg.
Yes, that was my one venture into Germany, and I've always wanted to go to Munich. And oops, sorry, did I lose you?
Nope, still here.
Okay, I was particularly interested in the Munich area, in the mountains around Munich, in Austria, and then of course my family is from Slovakia originally. And so, and even today, I ran into somebody recently in Scottsdale, and they says, "How do you say your last name?" And they said it with an accent, and I knew that they were from somewhere close to where I originated. And I said, "Bosick," and they said, "No, it's not Bosick, it's Bosick, right?"
Of course,
so, yeah. Anyway, very interesting. Why was becoming a doctor important to you?
Well, it's very interesting. Initially, I never had the desire to really become a doctor. My parents are doctors, but I really wanted to take a break. They said, I can do whatever I wanted to do. But then once I was working at the CDC, I didn't want to be a lab rat my entire life. And I did enjoy, being around people. And then at the time, 6 of us from our lab at the CDC, we all applied together to medical school. And we all ended up finishing medical school together. So it was really this team approach at the time. And then I think once I was in medical school and I saw what it could be like, what the path could be like, then of course, because of my background with my parents, it was very easy for me then to complete that.
Well, I had a different experience. My father was a medical doctor, and he used to dedicate his time to go down into Mexico and give of himself on the weekends and just work at a clinic along the border and do different things.
Yeah.
And so as a young guy in the 70s, I used to go with him, late 70s. And I can remember very specifically two incidents. One, a bus crash and numerous people coming in various states of concern, blood everywhere, and then a birth. And on both occasions, Bob needed to have a seat, or in fact, he went down. It wasn't going to work for me, medical school. So ultimately, I went to law school. But in any event, I had a different experience than you did. What's been the biggest challenge that you have faced during this process of, coming across? I know that you described having, as a student with a student visa and or otherwise needing to get employed and what those consequences would be. But, as you transitioned through medical school and got into your professional, your full-time professional, long-time career here as a physician, what's been the biggest challenge you faced?
Yeah, the biggest challenge will come to a shock for a lot of your listeners. And I don't mind sharing this because my friend, who is a businessman, he said I should tell my story one of these days. So about 5 years ago, I learned a hard lesson. And, I was almost on the street. I had lost everything. My house, my family. I have 2 children. They ended up moving to Switzerland, to Europe. And all of a sudden, I had no income at all because of something that happened. It wasn't my fault, of course. But what this really taught me was I went through some bad times, really some bad times. As you know, that a lot of doctors, something that most people may not know, burnout is real. And I said almost, I was on the street and I said, well, what can I do? So I had to be very resourceful. And up to that point, I was always employed. And it was that point where I was literally on the street where I said, listen, I really need to take my steering wheel in my own hands. And from that point on, I became my own boss. This was 5 years ago. And since then, now, because I was so dedicated and I was so vulnerable, a lot of good things happened in my life. People came to me and said, listen, you've always been a giver. We're going to help you out. I didn't ask for anything, And now today I am so blessed. I am so successful. I make more money than I ever have made in my entire life, even before the 5 years. So the biggest challenge is really when times are tough, that you have to be resourceful, that you cannot give up. You have to find a way. And as doctors, that's what we're trained to do, not just for our patients, but for ourselves.
I am glad that someone told you to be vulnerable because it's inspirational. Where so many people in a similar situation would lack the emotional fortitude to persevere. I was sitting in this exact room a month ago talking to a man who had graduated from high school, and by the time he was our age, and by about 2008, he was a multimillionaire, had a private plane, beautiful family, beautiful children. And in quick succession, he says, I was in this beautiful home, owned multiple properties. 2008 hit, the market went upside down. I get a phone call in the evening. My 16-year-old's been killed in a car accident. My wife the next month has terminal cancer. I have, in 90 days, have 6 or 7 different bankruptcies. I'm living on the street. I have no education. I have no resume. I've always worked for myself in real estate. And I'm just, it just stuns you, right? You're just like, so what did you do? And here we are, 15 years later, he's written or authored, 10 different books. He got his education. Then he went and got his master's. Then he went and got his doctorate. Then he became a professor, and he's back into real estate, has a new family. And where most people would crumble, absolutely never recover, I've now heard 2 tremendous stories in the course of 30 days. And I'm just, it's hard to be vulnerable and share those types of stories because we're so wired in society to only say the good stuff. But What an inspiration. Wow, that's so impressive.
Thank you. But you know what? It wasn't easy. And I had a lot of help. And also, I just, at the time when I didn't ask for I asked for help, but people just came into my life and said, listen, no, you've helped me. And in those moments, you really find out who are your real friends.
Oh, yes, you do.
And I will tell you that one of my friends whom I helped tremendously through my integrative medicine training, he ended up he ended up becoming an investor with me in my business, and he invested $250,000. I didn't ask for anything. And he said,
you volunteered.
Don't even think about paying this back to me. This is a gift to you. And I said, oh my goodness, how blessed am I,
Wow.
So, and then I said, well, this puts food on the table for my children. But then I became very resourceful and do the type of work I do now. And so basically, Bob, I'm very blessed. I focus on every day. I just give back all the time. I don't take, I just give. And by giving, you actually make more than you ever dreamed of.
Both spiritually and or otherwise, right? It's just, it replenishes you. So what is it that you do now? What path is this taking you on the last 5 years?
Sure. So I am very well trained, at Mayo. Mayo Clinic is a very famous clinic. I mean, most doctors have good training, but I also have certifications in integrative medicine and functional medicine. So what I'm doing currently, my bread and butter is teledoc. I'm one of the leading physicians. I used to be a 1099, but now they're doing a lot of W-2, which is not ideal from a tax perspective.
Right.
But you know what? I'm grateful. I always tell people I can be at home with my fingernails clean.
Yes.
I have zero overhead.
Yes.
And literally, as long as I take care of the patients, I have unlimited income, which is ridiculous. I just have to put the time in.
Sure.
So now what I do is I work every morning. This is going to sound crazy. Every morning I get up at 4. I work every day from 4 to 12, 8-hour days, every day.
Okay.
I see about 80, 90 patients in the mornings.
Wow.
And then no problem. I have such a strong mindset. This is not a problem. But then I go to the beach. I live in Florida. But then I work on my side projects, where I partnered with a local businessman here on Amelia. And this is a project over the next, few years, which will also then bring in extra income, which will be passive, but we are going to do this sure we're going to make money, but we're going to do this to really transform the community health. That's really very important to both of us. And then we want to then franchise this out nationwide. So that's ultimately the goal. So I cannot tell you too many details about it, but that's the goal.
Okay, yes, because you're somewhat vague. I was wondering kind of what vertical it falls into, but I understand.
But the bottom line is, Amelia is a very, very affluent, but at the same time, everybody needs help from a health perspective. And if we can show how this is possible in one community, because he's a very successful businessman, I'm a very successful doctor. So together, we're going to start here. He has another clinic out in Seattle, but the ultimate plan will be nationwide,
Very good.
And that's very exciting to me.
Very, very good. I wanted to ask you, there's certainly conveniences both for the patient and for you as the physician doing teledoc. But what are the drawbacks, the subtleties that you don't get to capture necessarily when they're in person? Maybe it's the foot tapping or a trimmer or something that may be missed. Things that are drawbacks for you?
No, you know what? I've been doing this now almost 21 years. Well, 17 years since I graduated, really. But I've been in the trenches like all of us. We've been there.
Yeah.
And most of us who've been doing this for a long time, we know that about 80% of stuff, you don't have to see them in person. And nowadays, when people, because of COVID changed the landscape dramatically.
Yeah.
Telemedicine is here to stay. And I am one of the leaders, not just with teledoc, but I've been doing telemedicine ever since I finished medical school. So I really don't miss it. I'm able to last month I saw 2,000 patients. So I get to influence a lot of people's lives positively.
Yes.
Make a good living. but also do something good for the community. So those things are important to me.
Absolutely. And, like anything, what's appropriate for telemedicine and, what that 20% outlier is that requires in person.
Yeah. And most people, they just want to know what to do. And I said, well, here's what you need to do. Oh, Thank you so much for telling me. And they're very grateful for that.
Sure. So in the last 5 years, what have you been doing to kind of secure your financial future? What are some ways you're taking control of it in terms of investing? Are you doing syndication, stocks, bonds, real estate?
No, like I said, and I don't mind sharing this. So literally 5 years ago, I literally had nothing, which is crazy to hear. But, over the years, a lot of things happened. I never, did anything bad where I lost my money on purpose.
Yeah.
But it was a single income household. My ex-wife took care of the children.
Yep.
And then something happened with her parents, and her parents had to live with us, and I literally paid for everybody.
Right.
And then we had some house damage with a hurricane in Florida. I mean, but you know what? Through all this time, I've been very resilient. Now that I make literally so much money with Teladoc, now I met with a financial advisor. I said, listen, I'm going to be vulnerable. I am so embarrassed to tell you this, but I
don't ever want to be in this position again.
No, but I will tell you, and I told her, listen, I have zero debt. I have no debt at all, but I have no savings really. Right. But my potential is so ridiculously high.
Yes.
That now I need to surround myself with professionals and say, listen, what do you suggest I do? Right. And since I've been doing that, even though I may be a late bloomer or a late starter, I'm not worried, Bob, because now I'm 48. I'm going to turn 48. I'm not worried because I know each year I'm going to make a certain amount guaranteed.
Right.
Plus I have that project. So real estate is something I will do.
Yeah.
And then if I do that, definitely syndication. That would be the way.
That would be the way you go.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and talk to your 30-year-old self, so we go back 17 to 20 years ago, not quite 20, what would you tell your 30-year-old self?
I would tell my 30-year-old self that you have to be in the moment. You only have each moment. You don't have yesterday. You don't have tomorrow. You just have right now, this moment. And I would tell this person, you will suffer in your life, but I want you to suffer well. And stress is not what kills us. It's the response to the stress.
That's right.
And I had to learn that through some trials and tribulations,
Sure.
That's what I would tell myself.
Yeah, we all, I was an executive, and burnout and the ability to be aware and present isn't unique to medicine and physicians. As an executive, I can now no longer doing that. You sit with some guilt a little bit, and sometimes more when you think about, I could have been a better father. I could have been a more present husband, a son, a brother. And so, I think that is a terrific piece of advice.
And what's really amazing now, that I'm so flexible, I'm also able to see my family regularly. I mean, I travel all the time.
You can do it wherever you want.
I'm a W-2, but I'm my own boss. I can. Teladoc allows you to set your own hours, and I'm done every day at 12. I mean, who has that kind of freedom and flexibility?
Yes.
So
if you want to go spend the next 2 months in Switzerland with your children, you could do this from there.
Well, no. So no, unfortunately not. So there are some laws and regulations.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry, but conceptually, you're fraud.
But I am able to travel. Literally, I travel about every 7-8 weeks to Europe, which is wonderful.
Yeah. I had I was talking to a doctor, and he was working from Spain.
Yep.
Outside of Barcelona, and I was talking to him.
Yeah.
And he was enjoying his life.
Yeah.
Who was someone that the listeners may not know, but they should, if, in your experiences, someone out there that they should know, but they don't.
Sure. So there's a Vietnamese monk who died a few years ago. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm sure a lot of people know about him. And I was very fortunate to take care of one of his second or third in command many years ago. And I helped this monk for free. I didn't charge him a thing. But it was this monk who taught me. He said, Daniel, you've helped me a lot. Now let me help you. And he was the one who said, you will suffer in your life, but you have to suffer well. Because Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book. He wrote a book called No Mud, No Lotus. So I went through all the mud, literally, and now I am
the lotus.
Enjoying the lotus,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful phrase. Elegance and that's a great phrase. I will remember that, and I have not heard that before. So if our listeners wanted to find you or touch base with you, connect with you for whatever reason, be it telemedicine or otherwise, what would be a way that they could get a hold of you?
Yeah, so what I do is I also do consultations, with physicians and also for patients. If you want to share my website, it's www.drkconsult.org, and people can literally book an hour of my time. They can ask me anything, not just for patients. My email is very simple, drdanielkessler@gmail.com. So those are two easy ways to get a hold of me.
Daniel, I have to say, I want to be respectful of your time. I told you we'd be about 25 or 30 minutes. We're getting close to that spot. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing your story. It's always for those of us that have the gray hair and have been through some journeys in life and peaks and valleys, and we all have a story. It's just refreshing for someone to open up and not just share the good stuff, but be willing to share some difficulties and the lessons learned and the process and the experience. And not enough people do that. It leaves a lot of us, when we start to go through that experience, believing that it's unique to us. And it's not. There's not a person that has not faced significant challenges or what they perceive to be significant challenges, what they're capable of handling. And
I learned,
really appreciate it.
I think, you're very welcome. I think that, like I said, my friend who's a businessman, he said, you should one day, tell your story, write a book, whatever. But the point really is that all of us are humans, and we are allowed to feel what we feel. There's no shame in that. But everybody always says, well, we're doctors. We should help everybody else. But you know what? Sometimes we have to help ourselves.
Yes.
But the key word is resilience. We all have the power in us. So don't give up.
Yes.
Even when the world is collapsing, there's always help available,
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much again, and I hope you have a terrific rest of your afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, and it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Have a nice day.
Thank you.